You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode is the post-apocalyptic fantasy film Reign of Fire, directed by Rob Bowman, released July 12th, 2002.
We went back.
Mm-hmm.
We went back for a bit on this one.
Yeah, on a movie that I had never heard of and didn't know existed until you brought it up on our Look Ahead special that we did a little while back for fun. And I was like, what is this movie? I've never heard of it. The Rotten Tomatoes score is enough to give our friend Jason a conniption, but...
Yes. But I think it's okay.
But I'm intrigued by what this is.
Yes. It is definitely a movie. I had only seen it one time until now. And I watched it twice in the last 2 days.
You made it through that. No, I'm sure you're curious as to where I landed on my thoughts on this movie.
I'm expecting you to completely shred it, and I'm okay with it.
If that's what you're expecting, then you're gonna be disappointed.
What?
Because I honestly liked it. Was it like one of the best movies I've ever seen? Definitely not. Were there a lot of weird story plot holes and the technology didn't make any sense and the CGI was a little rough, but for 2002 standards, actually really good. So yeah, I mean, definitely not the best movie I've seen by a long shot, but I didn't hate it.
All right.
I was entertained. I had a good time with it.
Okay, good. I'm really glad. I wasn't sure where you would land on this because I thought it could be shredded or I don't know. There are some movies that we put on the list and do that I have a feeling how you're going to react to it. I'm usually pretty spot on. This one I wasn't sure. I really was thinking, I don't know. He could like it. He could hate it. I'm not really sure. It did give us Christian Bale before The Machinist, before Batman Begins, like before he really started to take off and do cool things. Yeah,
that was my first little... I was in a kind of a snarky-ish mood. I've got some fun jokes in here, so there's some good... And that was my first one, of course, when it first started. I was like, all right, we got Matthew McConaughey. I know that guy. Well, I mean, I don't personally know him, but he's from around here, so that's cool. Local boy. And Christian Bale's on the most iconic superhero role. So...
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot to say about this movie. And one of the things I did was I did a little bit of research on the dragons because I wanted to dig in a little bit. And it wasn't listed in my usual sources, so I basically had to go digging even deeper.
Mm-hmm.
There was one Vice article from 2017, and all I'm going to tell you is the title was, "Without Reign of Fire, CGI dragons would probably suck." So there's more that I'll be adding later on, but that is the gist of this article. It's really well done and explains a lot.
Nice.
About,
I think they were done really well. Like I said, the CGI was a little wonky in some places, mostly the fire.
Yeah.
But honestly, the dragons looked really good, especially by 2002 standards. Like, very
I know.
good.
Think about it. Yeah. I was pretty pleased with it. I had forgotten so much about it because I watched it in 2002 and I never watched it again. So that tells you how really good it was as far as I was concerned, at the time.
Yeah.
So let's get started. We'll dive into this with some behind the scenes information like we do with every episode. It was filmed in and around County Wicklow in Ireland and in London, England. Rob Bowman is mostly known for directing TV, including 33 episodes of The X-Files. The screenplay was written by Kevin Peterka and Greg Shabbat in 1996. Matt Greenberg revised the screenplay in 2000. Greenberg most recently wrote the screen story for 2019's Pet Sematary remake. The film was nominated for a Saturn Award, but lost out to a little movie called Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. The tagline on the posters was "Fight Fire with Fire." The budget was $60 million. It grossed $82.2 million at the box office. It's 102 minutes long. And Pake, I understand you've constructed a beautiful synopsis for this movie. Why don't you give it to us?
I don't know if beautiful is the right word, but it's a synopsis. A brood of fire-breathing dragons emerges from the earth and sets everything ablaze, establishing dominance over the planet. It's up to a brave few survivors to attempt to save the human race.
Ooh, I think it really does get to the heart of the matter. Mm-hmm. And I guess we should probably just jump into this because I know that you have a lot of opinions, and so do I. So.
Yeah. Well, we'll kick it off with the character that we kicked the movie off with and kind of follow all the way through. So that will be Quinn, brought to us by Christian Bale, mostly. Because we do start the movie off, I was like, oh, there's a child surrounded by birds flying all around him. You tricked me into watching The Origins of Pigeon Man. No. But no.
That would be quite an interesting movie, Peg. Why don't you keep that in, write that down, and maybe we'll find something similar at some point to cover.
Yeah.
That's like a Pigeon Man.
But what we did, we start with young Quinn, which immediately I was like, I like this kid a lot. He's funny. Yes. And I was like, I really hope the Christian Bale version of him is still this humorous, which, no, not really. No. But I don't blame it on like writing or acting or anything. It was just literally because of the stakes. He doesn't have chances to be as funny. Because I did notice later on, I have a note, but I was just, when Quinn is telling Alex kind of the story of Jared, and he basically adopted him after finding this like 3-year-old in the wreckage. But when she asked, is that your kid? He goes, no, I got him at the pound. And I was like, okay, that sarcastic wit is still there. He's got it. Like, I was like, good, there we are. That's all I needed. I was like, because I understand him not being, it would have been a little ridiculous and goofy if he was like quippy like that the whole movie. Yeah. But he still had it in him. I'm like, okay, that's a character trait that we established when he was a child that I liked. And so I'm glad that it was there. He just understandably didn't have a chance to really be the funny guy because, he's trying to not die and keep a bunch of other people from not dying constantly.
Having to save them from themselves.
Yeah, but the young version of him, had some great, like, it just, as soon as we see him, because he's walking through this, like, kind of drill site before he's heading down to talk to his mom, and it's like, he's like, oh, you finally show up to work. He's like, well, someone's got to clean up after you guys, and the guy, when he gets into the cage, is like, oh, do you want a cigarette too? Joking with him. He goes, no, I told you, I'm trying to cut back. And then when he smells like the smoke, I'm like, have you been smoking? I told you I'm not smoking. I'm drinking. Like, I was just like, okay, I like this kid. Like, he's really funny. He's got my kind of humor.
There was one, too, that said to him, what are you doing down in the asshole of the world? And he says to him, well, you're passing through it. What does that make you?
Right.
And that just made me laugh, too. He did. As a kid, he was really funny. But what he saw, probably, he had to take things very seriously because his character in the future was really a post-apocalyptic fireman. Mm-hmm. That was his role, is saving people, protecting them.
Yeah. And because things flip around pretty quickly. So, he goes inside this mine of whatever kind that his mom is working in. Kind of seems like she's managing it.
Yeah.
And they struck scale. By God, there's dragon in their heels. So we'll send the small child in to check it out. And he meets this horrifying creature who I guess is also half llama because it spits right in his face.
Yeah. That was not great because there was something about what he spit out that they had to get out of his eyes.
Yeah.
Right away.
Well, it's like this caustic, like chemical that mixes with the other chemical to create fire.
Definitely. And so he had to get that washed out right away because it was going to harm his eyes, and you could see it was already irritating them.
Yeah. So, yep, dragon. Yay! And yeah, he's barely able to escape with his life. Unfortunately, nobody else does.
No.
And then we kind of cut to a bunch of letter writing exposition about how the dragons have taken over, scorched the earth, and now pretty much used up all their food source. There's that note that says they eat ash. And I was like, well, who doesn't? It's 2020. Oh, ash. Never mind. No, it's 2022. Who does? Oh,
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Ash.
No, yeah, and so then we just jump to the future, and he's built some kind of underground survivor community that he's the leader of, but at least seemingly. But things are getting bad. They're dire. They're not going to have another harvest because the ground isn't capable of being, used to produce any crops or anything, and they've run out of food, and they keep adding more people. So we see him having to deal with this guy Eddie and his family, who's trying to leave, and he's struggling as a leader in a lot of different ways.
He is. And I think also he's kind of grooming Jared, who was the orphan that he found. He's kind of grooming him to be the new leader.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily see that right away. It just takes a little bit of... it takes a little time to figure that out.
Yeah. So he's got there's a lot of kids in this little underground bunker community. And that's what made me go, okay, I love this movie. Even if everything else about it sucks.
I knew it.
The fact that Quinn and Creedy are reenacting Star Wars for the kids, instant masterpiece. I don't care what anything. No, I was so into that. Like, shock and awe response from all the kids on their faces. I am your father. And they're all like, I was like, yeah, this is incredible. I know that feeling. Also, fun fact, the first of many Game of Thrones references I'll make. One of the younger kids sitting right in the front row. Yes. Tiny little Jack Gleason. Everyone's favorite, most hated little shit, Joffrey Baratheon.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah. Oh my gosh, he was so little.
Yeah.
He was so little.
He's one of the actors that's on my very short list of like who I want to meet at conventions and stuff like that. Just because I've always had it in my mind that it was like, especially because of the shit he's been through because of that role.
Yeah.
Because stupid people can't comprehend separation between actor and character sometimes. I don't understand it, and so you get people like him who play these roles that end up getting real like hate and death threats and problem. It's like, calm down, people. But like, I mean, obviously you get those kind of reactions because of how well he did, but it was hard on him to where he like quit acting after that role pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I know he's still...
Tom Felton, who played Draco in the Harry Potter films, went through some similar things because he was an antagonist.
Yeah.
But he was also a child, and you're right, people can't separate the two.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you know someone's doing a damn good job in a role.
Right. And so that's why it's just like, he doesn't really do conventions and stuff very much, but he does some public kind of things every now and then. And so, yeah, Jack Gleason's always been on that like little short list of my mind. It was like, I'd love to meet him just to like shake his hand and be like, thank you for making me hate you so much. You're incredible. Yes. Like you did a great job. And I want you to know you're awesome. Like...
Yeah. Especially with his role on Game of Thrones. He was such an evil little shit.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard sometimes to separate the difference, but honestly, I feel like Game of Thrones as a series, in watching how well done it was, made me appreciate the actors who play villains even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just kind of running through the Quinn story, because the Eddie and his family they wait until nightfall and take the keys to a vehicle and take off anyway. But then the dragons, or a dragon, shows up out there, and things are looking real bad for these deserters. But Quinn, Creedy, and Jared appear with some cool fire suits and get them out of there. Well, most of them.
It's firefighting in 2020 because this movie took place, they're saying, in 2020. Yeah. So we're looking at, this was 2
I mean, 2020
years
wasn't super far off from this
No.
prediction.
No. It was a different type of antagonist that's been pestering us all this time. Not of the fire-breathing variety.
Mm-hmm.
There was also one little moment, too, just before Eddie's little stupid adventure out to pull the crops, basically. He wanted to go out and get the crops, and the problem with that is something to do with the seeds. Like, they needed them to mature enough so that they could get seeds from the crops for next year. And Eddie is just not having any of it. He wants to go get everything now. He wants to leave. He's just got all of these ridiculous ideas. But before this, we have this little boy that runs in to Quinn's room and is terrified because he thinks that the wind is dragon breath.
Yeah.
And I just thought that gave us this great moment of seeing how comforting Quinn can be.
Yeah, because he lets the kid, like, into his room to, like, sleep on the couch or something over there to just have, like, this, you know, comfort of nearness. And that's because then he makes a point. And that's one of those things about his character that I guess kind of does get resolved, not without, you know, not through dialogue or anything, but you just see the growth in him. But, like, the whole time he's talking, even, you know, he picked up Jared when he was 3, and he still is very set on, but I'm not his father. I'm not your father. Right. I'm not, like, he feels, because he even says about with Eddie leaving, he goes, well, you know, I'm not a parent, so he's trying to do what's best for his kids, so I kind of understand. But it's just a whole, like, thought process of he's not a parent, and he's not, but honestly, you see him with the Star Wars thing, and then letting this kid into his room, and everything he's done with Jared. It's like, no, you're like the parental figure for so many kids and so many people, and you don't even realize it.
Yes. I liked seeing that, though. I loved seeing him and Creedy presenting that scene from The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And you can see the kids are hanging on every word.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved seeing that because even when it was over and the kids were begging him to keep going, like wanting to see more.
What's a weird place to end it? I mean...
Yes.
I'm your father. No! And then the end. Yep. Wait, what? But there's so much more to this.
But and then they ask him, you know, did you make that up? And he said he did. Like, he lies to them and says, yes, of course I did. And it's just, I like the dynamic too with Creedy because Creedy's like his BFF, and he had the humor.
Yeah.
In most of this because he had a lot to say, and most of his lines were funny. Like, he had little quips and things that were fun. Creedy
was, when I first saw him, it took me off guard. I was like, holy shit, Gerard Butler is young. What is going on? Like, I am not used to seeing him that way. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, because this was long before 300.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot he was in it. And then, he pops on screen. It's like, oh my gosh, I forgot about Creedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great. I liked their dynamic together. I felt like he was a good right-hand man.
Oh, absolutely. And you get those like little like callbacks because when Van Zandt and the American military show up and they go, who's in charge here? And Creedy looks at Quinn and is like, well, that would be you. And then at the end of the movie, when Jared is coming to Quinn and being like, hey, we got some people on the radio speaking French and they're asking who's in charge. They want to speak to the leader. And he says, well, I guess that would be you. Like, it was this really cool little callback that I did enjoy.
It's funny because when Van Zandt was pulling in, because they're kind of freaking out inside the castle because they're not sure, you know, who it is or what they want. And then they're at a standoff. They want to speak to the leader. Quinn realizes, I've got to go talk to them. He looks at Creedy and says, anything happens, you know what to do. Creedy goes, no, I have no idea.
I have no idea. Yeah.
And Quinn says, me neither.
Yep.
I'm like, oh my gosh, who's running this?
Right.
Nobody. No one knows what's going on.
Yeah. I noticed then there's like this whole Time magazine that he's like flipping through that's like talking about like the end of the world. I was like, who did they make that for? Everybody's dead.
I know.
Who made that magazine? Why? Why would they print it? What's the point?
They stayed at their post till the very last second to produce one.
We gotta get these out.
Magazine.
For who? Everyone's dead. I don't know.
It doesn't matter. Get it out there. Creedy also, too, once he realizes that Van Zandt is American, he just says only one thing worse than a dragon. Americans.
Yep.
And yeah, he brought the comic relief in this movie. I think he was a good sidekick for Quinn. I think.
Yeah.
It was fun. And he does, when we talk a little bit about Creedy, we can talk about his alcohol making that he does, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. But as far as Quinn notes, I skip over a lot of the middle because, a lot of it kind of becomes the Van Zandt show for a while. They go through some ups and downs, to say it very lightly.
Yes.
That all leads to them having, Quinn having to decide, all right, this plan is going to be the only way. I'm going to have to go with you because all your men are dead. My castle is gone, and we have to take care of this, which, if I do have to have one major complaint for the movie,
here we go,
is, for movie reasons, I get the reveal of kill the male, kill the species, as Van Zandt says. I was like, but then I'm like, evolutionarily speaking, that makes zero sense. Why would all of the eggs be female? You can't continue a species on one male ever in the lineage of everything. It's there should be males that hatch from the eggs and then they fertilize more and continue the species. That's how evolution and life works.
Well, and think about this though.
It's such a coincidental happy thing. There's there's one male and that's it ever. I was I get it's because they have to be able to win somehow.
Yes.
Because the stakes that you've given, if it was logistical and in the realm of reality in this sense, you can't win that war. That's it.
No, you can't. One of the questions I had was the fact that we know that when Quinn's a little boy, they're waking up the male. Mm-hmm. That's the one that's waking up inside that cave.
Yeah.
But then how the hell did all those females arrive? Was he the only one, or were they asleep too?
There must have been reproduce? A few in there. Yeah, I don't know. They don't really specify.
It's never explained.
But when they decide they need to get to the lair of the male, that's when Quinn's really okay, I gotta go. Because I know exactly where that is. I met the fella once. Yep. He left my eyes looking like I was in a My Chemical Romance video. So we can get down there and take them out for good, for sure. Magic hour. That's the plan. I do like that.
I did too. I like the whole explanation that Van Zandt had he had for that. It was basically
kind of this visual adjustment time for them.
Yeah. They can see during the day, they can see during night, but at dawn they can't focus. It takes time. So I like that description that he had for the magic hour. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of cool.
So he goes into the city with them, which again, because he was I know this city from the top down and I know it from the bottom up. I was you were what? Maybe 12 when all of this started. It's it's pretty young to get the whole layout of the city of London. Most people who live there all their adult life don't have everything down. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know how he thought that he knew it. Although I will say, I think as a child he seemed pretty resourceful. Yeah. So maybe that's maybe his mom did lots of construction projects and it allowed him to get better access to the city.
He definitely would have known better than most kids his age.
Yeah.
But
I know.
Still, it's a little overreach for me. I'm
yeah.
Still weren't around the city that long.
Yeah. I feel in order to finish this story, though, we have to shift a little bit to Van Zandt because there were some things that happened. With Van Zandt and his directive.
Yeah.
That caused some turmoil with Quinn.
All right. Yeah, I'm down with that. We will make our shift over there, and then we'll pick up back on Quinn
We
when we're done
will.
with him.
Well, we learn, okay, so Van Zandt shows up and he's like a dragon slayer and the only man to ever really kill a dragon. He's the one who says, it's a male dragon. I've never seen, a male dragon. It's got to be fertilizing the eggs. And he flew in and it made me laugh because at that time, Quinn's like, well, the sky belongs to them.
Yeah. I thought it was cool, like them rolling up with these tanks. I don't know why Watchhawk didn't care. I was calling it their Watchhawk. I was like, well, they have a Watchhawk and a dragon alarm. Okay.
Yeah.
But
well, it was a dragon alarm, not the tank alarm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it doesn't care about tanks.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's nothing.
So I didn't really think about it, but like with these tanks rolling up, I was like, yeah, I guess in like any apocalyptic scenario, other survivor groups usually are a major threat, even more than the apocalyptic scenario in a lot of cases. And it's like, and they're American military.
Think about The Walking Dead and everything that we've seen in that. You've always got those other factions, so you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And Van Zandt had ulterior motives when he showed up. There were things he wanted.
Because his story originally, it's just like, hey, we need a quick stop for shelter. And he said they were low on fuel too, which I don't know how you plan on taking care of that problem unless you're taking supplies of fuel from these people. And Quinn picks up on that. But he's like, and then we'll be on our way. I do like the line he says where he goes, we can do this easy or we can do it real easy. I was like, yeah. I like that.
Well, Quinn didn't see or couldn't understand how they'd be able to fly a plane there. And then he's really surprised when here comes Alex with the helicopter.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That was an entrance.
How like they were just like caught off guard by it, like and they secretly have a chopper. Cool.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, Alex Jensen and the Archangels.
Yes.
A team that, as Creedy puts it, jump out of a chopper and use a net to snare dragons. Of course you do. Like, yeah.
Yes.
The Bullamen.
Doesn't work real well. At least in this case. I feel so bad, like, for the people that jumped out of the helicopter. They lost, Van Zandt lost a couple of his Archangels. Mm-hmm. He was very upset, even though they were able to kill the dragon.
Yeah, well, the original plan, which I did like once they stay off in motion, I was like, all right, let's see what these Americans do. What can they do? What do they got? And it's cool. They have this whole like radar system, Piscatella. Not quite able to get that third marker placed, so he becomes lunch.
Yes.
Quinn takes over with that. But it's cool because Alex has this kind of like mapping, like a GPS mapping. They can figure out where everything is, get on top of the dragon, and then send the Archangels down to snare him. And yeah, the three that die, well, the whole thing starts bumpy from the get-go because one of them falls out of the helicopter, and so they just kind of like, I guess we're doing it now, go. And then that guy just ends up hitting the ground and dying because he's trying to escape the dragon, doesn't have time
I think
to
it's
like
Alvarez.
plan.
Yeah, that was bad.
But the other two jump after, fire their nets, but the dragon just shakes them off. One of the guys gets chomped, and then the third, it looked like he was able to parachute safely to the ground, but I guess not.
Guess not.
I don't know.
I wondered about that too.
Yeah, but either way,
sure.
Total mission failure. But then Van Zandt does have a backup plan, using Quinn as bait. But you bring her straight to me, and he has what's basically the Scorpion from Game of Thrones. There's the next reference, and that does the trick. So I like that. Yeah,
long before Game of Thrones was put into effect. Yeah. Quinn was bait. Quinn and his horse, they were bait.
Yep.
There was a moment that he's looking at the horse, and I'm just thinking, oh, I don't know. I don't see the horse surviving in this one. Something's going to go wrong. But they do kill one of the dragons, and so Quinn's people are celebrating this.
Yeah.
Van Zandt is not happy. He lost 3 men. He's very upset.
Yeah, he even tells them he's disgusted by them.
Yeah. Because
it's
they're
like, all right,
celebrating.
cool. I lost men, and we took out one dragon out of millions, probably. Like, there's nothing to be celebrating here. Which the whole celebration, again, was really stupid to me. I'm like,
yeah,
we have established that the dragons will hunt at night, so let's just invite them all in with these big spotlights and loud music like that.
Yeah,
sure.
Big party, right. Big party for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here's the buffet.
All you can eat until it's gone.
Right.
I really felt for Van Zandt during that speech. I think Matthew McConaughey did a really good job with it. Like, he got emotional. You know, the character got emotional and took the dog tags, gave them to Alex because she's keeping the record of everyone who had died. And that's when Van Zandt decides he wants to go to London to find the mail. At that point, Quinn's like, it's that way. Have a great trip. And then he decides he needs more people. And Quinn does not want him to take anyone. But he goes out anyway and starts talking to people to see who might volunteer. When there aren't enough volunteers, he decides he's going to take the sixth strongest, and draft them into the army. And
That's
Quinn is having none of that. He's having none of that. So he goes down and they start fighting, fist fighting. And Eddie and a couple of the others.
Yeah, Eddie went. Go. And then what got me, the older guy that was in the watchtower with the hawk went.
Yes.
But he took the hawk with him.
Yeah,
I was like,
I don't know
so
what
then
that was
when
about.
the big male dragon just like sneaks up on the castle later, it's like, well, maybe if they would have had a hawk there.
Yeah. They would have been able. Yeah.
Can nobody else do that bird job with the bird? After that guy left? I don't know.
Yeah, that was a problem. That started a series of events that did not end well for the folks in the castle. And I mean, Quinn told him that this was going to happen. He said, you're going to get close, but something, it's going to end up driving one of the dragons back here. And it's going to attack. He knew this was going to happen. Exactly
what happened is, they rolled up to the male's territory, and then pretty much all of them got golden companied immediately.
Oh my God. Yes.
Everyone died except Van Zandt, and then Alex was doing a little scouting thing, so she wasn't there. And it looked like maybe 2 other people somehow lived. And that was about it.
Yeah.
So I guess Eddie's gone.
Bye-bye, Eddie. Bye-bye, Eddie's family. But then also, Quinn is outside, like monkeying around with the dead dragon, and finds one of the eggs. The next thing you know, the dragon's on its way to attack the castle.
Yeah. Which, again, when he was out, there's another thing that really confused me. I'm still not... Because they have this whole scene of him talking to Jared, because Jared's like, I'm leaving, I'm going with Van Zandt.
Yes.
And I need to do this, and, waiting and surviving is pointless, and this mission's necessary, and I have to go with him. And then he's just kind of like, well, I'm not your father, so I can't stop you, and you're a man now if you're going to tell me this, so you can go. And he kind of respects his choice. You can see it hurts him, because, again, like, he is kind of this father figure. But then, he's out in the garden, and then Jared's like, oh, hey, I changed my mind because reason, so...
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, well, what was the point of that? I don't...
I think what the point was is that he may not have thought that Quinn would just approve him to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he realized that he did, maybe he realized that he did have Quinn's respect, and it was okay for him to decide to stay at that point. I mean, Quinn had been working to, train him to be the new leader, to transition power to him. He'd been working on this for a while. This is what he wanted. He wanted Jared to lead everyone. And I think Jared probably realized that he did have Quinn's respect, because he did go to him and said, I want to do this mission. I need to do this. And instead of talking him out of it or trying to, he just said, you know what? You're an adult. I'm not your father. Go. And so maybe there was that mutual respect, and that's why he came back.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
It was all very quick and kind of glossed over. I was like, oh, Jared's going. Oh, no? Okay.
No.
He's not.
I'm glad he didn't go, because...
Yeah, he would have definitely been toast. Really.
Toast. Oh, boy.
So, yeah, wouldn't have lasted long, so...
No.
It's a good thing he stayed. I like the kid. He's fine, so let's not kill him. It's probably a good thing.
Definitely. Yeah. So they come back, but the problem is the castle's getting attacked, and poor Quinn's on the outside.
Yeah.
He finally gets in there, and
And then
really,
thank God Creedy and Jared are there with the fire extinguishers. Well, all good now.
no.
Everything's fine now. They got fire extinguishers.
No. Because that was just the precursor. That was the initial fire. Something bigger was coming. Because that dragon set things ablaze. They were running around. And Quinn is thinking about the kids. Like, he's so protective of these kids and the people. And really, I think most of the men died in the fire. I think it really was just women and children left.
Yeah.
A few men.
And then Creedy was down there for a little bit. But then it was like, up and there he goes. R.I.P. Creedy. Because he was like, I'm going to go up to save more people. And then was immediately went from Creedy to Crispy. And... At least he closed the door first to kind of save them. And I was like, well, then there was that. Bye.
They had that one look because Quinn wanted to go up originally. And Creedy's like, nope, I'm going to do it. You have to stay here. It's too dangerous. You need to stay here. And then there was just that one look where he knew it's over.
Yeah.
And Creedy is gone. But when he shut the door, things got stuck. And so they were stuck inside and they couldn't get out.
Mm-hmm. But luckily, Van Zandt and Alex and a couple others showed up and get the survivors out from underground. The castle is like done for. We did get a good lingering shot. Little Joffrey's still there, so.
Yes. Yes, he is. He made it through.
And which maybe was not a good thing because we know who he goes on to be. So.
Yes, we do. He goes on to be a terrible ruler. So at this point, I think we can kind of transition back to Quinn because this is at the point where he realizes he's got to go to London because he knows where the mail is and he knows London really well. And so he realizes that he has to do it, even though it means he might not make it back.
Yeah.
He wants to do whatever he can to protect his family because he has a huge family. His whole community is his family, and he's been so focused on protecting them this whole time that I think he realizes at that point that in order to protect them more, especially the children, he's going to have to go and try to do something.
Yep. They do make it to London, and they're kind of scoping the thing out. It's like, man, there was a ton of those dragons all over the city. Yes. Which, luckily, they didn't last long because, like, the hungry male, like, scares all of them away for the time being. And so they're like, well, this is our opening because it's just, instead of millions on 3, now it's 3 on 1 for the time being. Time to put an end to this. All of the burninating. For too long, these dragons have been, burninating the countryside, burninating the peasants, burninating all the people in their thatched roof cottages. We've got to take care of business.
You know why the dragon scared away all of the others or how it did?
Oh, it's eating them.
It's eating them. Okay. And that was something else that they realized is that the dragons were really hungry. So they were, they're turning on themselves like to eat. The male had no problem. It's like, okay, yep, you'll do. Snacks on that one little teeny one. Mm-hmm. And that's it. So they decide to go in. And that is when Quinn says, he knows the city.
Yeah.
He can take them into the tunnels underneath.
Yeah.
And that
mine tunnels.
Yeah. And that's also when we have this shift of Van Zandt where earlier in the castle, he says to Quinn, I lead, you follow. Mm-hmm. But when they're in London and they're in the tunnels, he says to Quinn, you lead, we follow. And I feel like, that was that shift in his character. Mm-hmm. Where he and Quinn got to at least some common ground. Because I think there was definitely a mutual dislike for each other up until then. And I feel like, Quinn knows he's got no choice. In order to do this, he needs Van Zandt. He needs Alex. Although I don't think him needing Alex was a problem because I think they were cozying up to each other and, we see a little more later. I think they maybe kind of lived happily ever after, but I'm not sure.
It's kind of open-ended.
It's open-ended.
Well, yeah, because I mean, when even at the end they have this like new community they've built, and Jared's taken over the leadership. But they talk about like the last time a dragon was there, and it's like they just like, well, we just they burn it, they burn it down, we rebuild, because it's just a waiting game for them to die out at that point. Who knows how long that'll take?
Yeah, no one knows. As long as they're not breeding, we're okay, because then they eventually will die out.
Yeah.
Parts of this reminded me a bit of Godzilla vs. Kong or Godzilla King of the Monsters, just the fire and darkness that we saw in those movies. I feel like we saw in this as well.
So when they're in the tunnels, again, Van Zandt has kind of the main plan, which is really cool. I don't know. Yeah, they have these explosive tip arrows with a crossbow.
Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense. You've seen this before in movies and TV and stuff when it comes to dragons and things like this, where you ignite the whatever they use to breathe fire by waiting until they're about to breathe the fire, and then you shoot this explosive arrow into it. It's been done before, so many times. I mean, this was what we did 10 Cloverfield Lane, and that was like a big thing,
Yes.
So
I thought it was cool though that they Van Zandt also had the idea of, well, we need to split up, because if we're all together and it hits us once, it's over. But if we split up, at least we have a chance of not all of us getting killed at the same time. Yeah. I thought that was smart. He's also the one that explains that, the dragon only exposes its chest when it's about to fire, and they needed to be watchful of that. There was something about the arrows, too, being magnesium tipped, and they only go 50 feet. So
you've got to be right there.
You got to be right there. You have to get real close.
Yeah, so then they have this big final battle with Trogdor. And our three heroes, which, let's call them the Dragon Force. Through the fire and the flames, they carry on. Alex is running across the opening, leading the dragon to Van Zandt, who fires one of his arrows. It's not perfectly timed, does a little damage. So he goes out on some real Kratos shit. Looks a lot more badass than it really was effective, but
yes.
But hey,
it did look like Kratos. It did.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even make that connection until you just said it.
With the tattoos and the bald head and the axe, it was all there.
Yep, it was very Kratos. I think, too, whatever he did when he did shoot the dragon, I mean, the thing was smoking.
Yeah.
And smoldering. Like, it wasn't on fire, but it was like smoke was coming out. And it's like when if you're playing a game and you hit a ship and you wound it, or you get the smoke that's coming off. That's what kind of it looked like, was the smoke was coming off like they had wounded it. Yeah. But they hadn't done the job. So they, poor Van Zandt. Poor Van Zandt.
Jean-Claude Van Damme was in this movie automatically at some point. Yeah, he just showed up. He did the splits and was like, "Hey guys," and then he left. It was weird. It was a weird scene. I don't know why they left it in. No.
That should definitely have been on the cutting room floor. So Van Zandt goes out in some sort of glory, I guess, and that just leaves Alex and Quinn to take on the dragon and finish the job.
Yeah, which of course he lost his arrows while running across the opening.
Of course he did.
Oh, wait.
That's what always happens.
Right. So they do find the arrows that he lost, and him and Alex pretty much do the exact same plan, just on the ground instead of in the elevated. And yeah, that time it works. He fires the arrow right down the dragon's throat, and we get a big old boom.
Boom. And that's it.
Yeah.
I guess it was Alex's idea that they go to London and do this. But it's funny because she actually mentions that she thought she'd be up in the air, 30,000 feet when it was going on, not down on the ground running around.
Right.
And when she goes on her last run, I mean, you can see the terror in her face, like she thinks she might not make it. But Quinn, being Quinn, took care of business, like he often does. And the dragon is taken out. I think that's all I have on both Van Zandt and Quinn.
Yeah. Well, that's because we've thrown in other notes, this might be a record. The fact that I think I'm done with all my notes for all characters and all things. So it was a pretty quick one. I didn't have a whole ton. But yeah.
I do have a few more things on Creedy. I like his little Creedy's own black label, aged 2 weeks in a steel barrel. Now the secret swallowing fast. That way it only burns your stomach and not your throat. Mm-hmm. Love that. I feel like he had the funny lines in this movie. And Jack Gleason was not the only Game of Thrones actor that was in this movie.
Oh, really?
Yes, there was someone else in this movie as well, which I will take out some of this blathering that I'm doing right now. Alexander Siddig played AJ. AJ was the one manning the communication device. Mm-hmm. And he was in Game of Thrones.
Was he from Dorne? Because of his skin tone and stuff. I mean, just the areas in Game of Thrones. I was like, he would have had to have been from Dorne, right?
Yes.
I assume that's probably so. Yeah.
Yeah, he played Thorin Martell.
I didn't recognize him from that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, he's young. He was younger.
A lot younger.
Yeah. He also, for anyone who watched Gotham, he was Ra's al Ghul.
Oh, cool.
From Gotham, so he was on that as well. But there's another connection to Game of Thrones, and there's one more. It's not really a connection as much as it is an influence, but we'll talk about that once we get to production notes. Cool. I did have a couple notes on the dragons. Let me see. They feed on ash and any life that they find, but they also burn their prey and eat the ash after, and they would burn the field so they could eat the ash after. So they were eating ash, and I don't know how that can fill you up. To me, it's like a salad, because salads don't fill me up. So I'm thinking, okay, it's like a salad. And then the only other note I have is this dialogue between Quinn and the children that he says twice in the movie. Once when they're after the play and once when they're in the bunker. He says to the kids, what do we do when we are awake? Keep both eyes on the sky. What do we do when we sleep? Keep one eye on the sky. And what do we do when we see them? Dig hard, dig deep, go for shelter, and never look back. Which I thought was interesting. They did it twice. But those are all of my regular, podcast notes.
Cool.
Anything else is under production notes.
All right. Yeah, that sums that up. A quick one, not super long, but I kind of figured that would be the case. It's there's a lot of little fun things in this movie, but for what it is, it's it doesn't warrant a super deep dive and long conversation. But it was
not
fun.
A 3-hour podcast, Pake.
Oh no, I've done that already this week. We are so it's nice to not have to do that again.
That's exactly why I said it.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump in then with our production notes.
Awesome.
And we can move forward. Okay, so Bowman, I mentioned earlier, is really known for directing TV shows. He's only directed 4 films, including Airborne, The X-Files, Reign of Fire, and Elektra. The film presents an alternative history in which the dinosaurs were killed off by dragons, rather than the dinosaurs being killed by an asteroid. Despite top billing, McConaughey's character does not appear until 30 minutes into the movie. The London scenes were filmed on the grounds of a decommissioned Pigeon House power station in Ringsend, Dublin. Also, it was filmed in the Wicklow Mountains at Glendaston Valley lead mines on the condition that they would completely clean up after themselves and not damage the landscape. Also, due to Ireland's first major outbreak of foot and mouth disease in 40 years, the production company needed special permission for the location filming, and many scenes were unable to be filmed due to quarantine restrictions.
Interesting.
I do remember that. Bowman wanted to make his dragons as vicious and realistic as possible and knew they were starting from scratch. He wanted there to be relatability to the predators that exist in our world, including a king cobra, with texturing from an alligator. They also drew on Komodo dragons, elephants, lions, sharks, etc. Secret Lab was tasked with bringing the dragons to life. At the time, co-visual effects supervisor Dan DeLue said this was the hardest film he had ever worked on and had the following to say about the dragon design. Character design is not only how a character looks, but also how it moves. We wanted to make an animal whose wings could support its weight. To make something that could really fly, we studied flying dinosaurs. We took classic ideas and combined elements of various animals to create the dragon. The dragon is part snake, leopard, lion, eagle, and hawk, vulture, and crocodile. After this, DeLue went on to work on such films as Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and I believe he also did a couple of the Captain America movies.
Nice.
The dragon's fire was inspired by the spitting cobra and bombardier beetle. The beetle shoots two chemicals from its abdomen that, once they are mixed, create the hot burning spray. For the dragons, they present that they are spitting chemicals from two different sacs in their mouth, and those ignite when combined.
Mm-hmm.
And something I thought was very cool is these mechanisms went on to inspire and were used in several Harry Potter films, Gods of Egypt, and Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Although there have been ripoffs of his dragons, Bowman has said, it's okay, it's a compliment.
Yeah, kind of like really set a like ground level on this is what these are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
It's great to know. So, I mean, I didn't know this, so when I was reading it, it was kind of like, yeah, they do kind of match up. There are some, consistent things. So it's very cool that a movie that was not necessarily highly rated or made a ton of money can influence others in such a way. So you can definitely thank Dan DeLue and Rob Bowman for the lovely dragons that we had in Game of Thrones. And Christian Bale starved himself in an effort to look as underfed as his character. This is something he also did for his role in The Machinist, which is a great movie also.
Machinist was like even more extreme.
Yes, it was.
Man, that is a really good movie. It is a tough,
hard to watch.
Rough movie, but it is a good one.
Yeah. It's one that you should see at least once.
Yeah.
I feel like once is enough.
Definitely.
To watch it. He did, I guess, let up on his starvation when he realized how hard Matthew McConaughey was working out. He realized, okay, I guess I could.
Compared to that guy on screen, I'm not going to look. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to look pretty small anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to be fine. And yeah, that is all I have for production notes. I feel like there were some really cool things in this movie, especially knowing that they influenced future incarnations of dragons in other films.
Yeah, if we've wrapped it up, overall, last thoughts on the movie. Like I was kind of saying, yeah, it has some really bad reviews and rating, and I don't really get that. Like I said before, is it perfect? Not at all. Are there a lot of weird story plot holes and some stuff, or like some of the but it's like the things that if you pay a lot of attention to those things, you'll get hung up on. Then there's plenty to get hung up on. But
yeah, definitely.
But overall, it's a fun story, and I think a lot of it is done really well. So I enjoyed it.
All right. I'm glad. I'll take it because I wasn't sure how you were going to feel about it. I really wasn't. I thought it could go either way.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you ended up liking it, at least enough. And we've had such a fun conversation about it. I don't think it takes itself too seriously.
Right.
But they did do some pretty cool things that, for 2002, and to still look at them now, they don't look too bad.
Yeah, for sure. I was never really taken out of it by anything looking super bad.
No. And I think that there are movies that came out after this that don't hold up.
Right.
So I think it definitely did its job.
For sure.
Oh my goodness. Man. There it is.
Let's see if we got any real fun calls or messages on this one.
Can't wait.
All right, for feedback this week, we have one, and it is not about Reign of Fire. I know there's a few of you out there, a couple of you who are big fans of this movie who we've talked to. So we're still waiting for your feedback. You don't have to get it in this week, but we'll be waiting. And if you want to leave us some feedback for this movie, please do, because we would, at any point, love to hear your thoughts. I'd name drop some people, but I'm not going to do that. But you know who you are.
You know what? They should. And I won't name drop either, but we'd really like to share kind of the love of this movie. It's not perfect, but if you really like it, we would love for you to call in or write in and let us know why you like it.
Yeah.
So that others might be interested in checking it out, or just share the love of the film. Like, it would just be fun.
Right. It seems to be pretty unknown when I've never heard of it until you brought it up on the Looking Forward special, and then we covered it here. It was completely nowhere near my radar. So
I know.
Yeah, it'd be fun to bring that to some more people.
It's cool. I do have a few more of those in my back pocket to pull out at some point. It's fun. You can't usually stump me, but I can usually bring something from the past into our little radar.
All right. Well, speaking of feedback that's later than the movie came out, that's what we do have this week. Is we have one awesome message, one bigger message from our friend Damien, who is messaging us about Jurassic World that we did a couple weeks ago. Was it a couple weeks ago, or was it just last week? I don't remember.
A couple of weeks ago.
Time is a construct.
I know. I know.
Anyway, about Jurassic World, Damien says, this is a few weeks late. Yes, okay. He starts with that. But I wanted to send my thoughts on Jurassic World. As much as I believe the original Jurassic Park is a movie masterpiece, I love Jurassic World for breathing new life into the franchise. The dinosaurs are amazing, especially the man-made hybrid Indominus Rex. When it tore apart the ACU, it reminded me of Aliens when Ripley watched as the Marines were picked off one by one. I think Owen and Claire's chemistry is classic. Chris Pratt was the perfect casting, and who can run from a T-Rex in heels better than Bryce Dallas Howard? The kids are annoying, but hey, you have to have kids in these type of movies.
I have to agree, though, Damien. I agree with you, because I do think, though it might not be perfect, I feel like it did kind of bring the dinosaurs back to the forefront again in cinema, and I appreciate that so much.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when it first came out in theaters, and I was there opening night, and I was like, I've been waiting so long for this.
It's so awesome. And we are only about 5 months away from Dominion.
We've got a lot of Jurassic stuff to squeeze in here then. We'll get to it soon.
Yes, we do. There's going to be a lot in our future, and I cannot wait. But if you would like to send us feedback on, I don't know, Jurassic World or any of the other movies we've covered previously, or this movie that we're releasing this week, which is Reign of Fire, you can do so by going to our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Send us a tweet on Twitter at RFYLpodcast, or reach us on Instagram at runforyourlivespodcast. If you're enjoying this show, be sure to tell your friends. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much all other podcast players, including YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And of course, speaking of sharing the love, I'd like to talk about what's going on in the podcast universe around us. Although, not a whole lot this week. Everybody's kind of finally winding down on covering a lot of different things or staying real busy, and everybody's getting their well-deserved, well-needed, well-due breaks. I'm even taking off on vacation over this next week, so we'll see what our schedule looks like going, in the weeks ahead. But there's a few, mainly House Podcastica's putting in the work still this week. They just wrapped up their coverage of Yellow Jackets with Daphne right here, joining Wendy and Jason for the season 1 finale this week. It's been a great one. I've been listening to it. Almost done with it. It's great.
Thank you. It was a blast to cover this show, and now we have to wait, and that is the hard part, because we've gotten used to the weekly buzz coming through from the show, and now we're not going to have it. So I know I'm going to be glued to the casting news to figure out who's going to be coming in next season to play who. And yeah, it's really exciting. I can't wait for season 2.
Yeah, I'm excited. I thought the season 1 finale was awesome. Answered a few questions, but left us with a lot of really big ones too that I'm super excited to see where they go with it.
Yeah. With this show, you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
I think I even mentioned it on the podcast. You think you figured something out, and by the end of the next episode, you have to eat your words because something else has happened and twisted it around.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to like that. It's a mind fuck sometimes, but right. I'm okay with it.
Oh, yeah. And so they did wrap up Yellow Jackets coverage. Last episode is there, but House Podcastica still has regular coverage right now of 2 running shows, as Disney Plus Book of Boba Fett is out, and then Netflix has Cobra Kai season 4 running, and they're covering both of those shows weekly. Boba Fett as it's coming out each week, and then Cobra Kai, they've been doing 2 episodes a week, kind of combining 2 episodes each time. They just put out this week covering episodes 5 and 6, I believe. Yes. And then 7 and 8 should be next week, which I just watched those today in preparation now that I'm caught up on the podcast. Holy crap, I'm so ready to listen to those. There's some moments in there I was like, I got emotional thinking about what Jason's going to be thinking about these episodes. So I was like, man, this is going to be good stuff. So,
it's really fun. Kat mentioned once that she loves to listen to podcasts from some of our friends because it's like she's listening in on a conversation that they're having. Mm-hmm. And it's really fun. Like, it makes it even more endearing when you know the people that are recording the episode.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's totally true.
Yeah, it's just watching Cobra Kai as a fan, I'm like, oh my God, this is such a cool thing. I can't wait. But then knowing, Jason and Rima and Rich covering the show on the podcast, and especially, there was moments in these last 2 episodes I just watched where I was like, because of the way I know Jason's going to feel, or like something that made him happy, or something that relates to him, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be really interesting to hear his take on this. So that's a cool way to look at it.
I love that. The same way I love listening to you and Rima when you're covering things, because knowing the both of you, I think I know how you're going to feel, but then sometimes it's not what I thought. And you always bring up something that I just didn't realize was happening. So I love it. I think it's cool that we have this little podcasting community.
Yeah, it's great. I did say, we'll see where our schedule goes, but we will have an episode up next week for you guys. We have that ready to go pretty much for you. And Daphne, what is that? What is happening next week here on Run for Your Lives?
Next week, we visit the not-so-innocent community of Cispus Falls, Oregon, where a father's meth manufacturing operation is the least of his problems when an unpleasant encounter leads to disaster for his family, especially his 12-year-old son. It's up to his teacher and her sheriff brother to save Lucas and the town from a mythological evil. Up next, we are covering Scott Cooper's 2021 supernatural horror film, Antlers.
Yeah. Prepare yourselves. It's a dark one. It's a heavy one.
Yeah.
But I think it is really good. It's a lot, but it's a good movie.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm really interested in hearing what our listeners think of it. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we'll get a live Steve.
We'll see. Wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge. And with that, we have reached the end of another fun, fantastic episode. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run from pissed off prehistoric dragons with enough firepower to turn you to ash and inhale you for dinner, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.